Well, welcome to the West Tigers podcast. This is episode number 118. Eddie Otto joined by Declan McCutcheon. Gary's busy with work this week. He's got the week off, the podcast, but we've got a very special guest coming on later, Declan. We got Joel Helmes, who, of course, did the first, 90, 100-odd podcast with me, and we're going to ask him a little bit about his thoughts because he's been obviously busy with his own career this season, so we haven't been able to get him on, but he's been watching every game. I know that because we're in a little chat group, so it'd be good to get his thoughts on what he's seen this year.
Yeah, the People's Champion backed by popular demand. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, he's very popular, Joel. He's got the voice. Yeah, I love his voice. He's got that perfect sort of radio style voice.
Yeah, it's very calming. Makes you feel relaxed.
Well, we'll see if it's very calming when he comes on or whether he's fired up. So I'm going to ask him and yourself a bit of a buy, sell, hold game that me and Joel used to do around some senior players, management, coaches. Then we're going to get into some of the deeper issues around the club, given there's, again, a big week of speculation in the media in terms of the future of the coach and why we can't attract players, etc., etc. But, Declan, let's start with the game. West Tigers 24, Manly 44. Do you have a word to describe your thoughts on that one?
I don't have a word, but I have a phrase. I'm going to say so close, yet so far. I think that was the kind of one of the strangest 44-point conceding games we've had in a while. And the fact that it did kind of feel like we were in the game, even though we still got blown out in the end. But yeah, at the same time, it was Manly were just the better team. And, like on paper, you probably think that. And that's probably what played out in the scoreboard. But, we did push them and we probably shot ourselves in the foot as well and kind of let Manly off the hook, which then led to the blowout.
No, I mean, I had as expected because I sort of thought the game went to a pattern where we were better than we were obviously the first time against Manly, where they completely blew us away from about the 20, 25-minute mark. But the big turning point for me in this game was just before half-time, 12-10. I think we'd had 3 sets on their line. Tommy Talau knocks the ball on tackle 1. They go up the other end and score. And before we touched the ball again, I think they scored again. So it's almost like an 18-point turnaround, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that was really disappointing. I mean, I think we even had, it was 4 sets on their line, and we just couldn't execute. And in this modern day age, you just need to be really clinical when you're in the attacking red zone of the opposition team. And yeah, I think it was a real boost for Manly because you could tell they went up a gear after that, after being able to defend their line for so long, and they turned defense into offense, and that's pretty much how the game got away from us as well. And by that point, some real really soft individual efforts in defense really let us down as well.
I guess that's the frustrating thing as a fan is it's almost like the same players making the same mistakes. Like Talau I know he's a young player, but he's had real issues with his hands this year. And then Luciano Leilua, just a really lazy effort, which led to the try, I think, at the back end of that set of 6. Is that the thing that's letting us down? Just mental lapses in concentration?
Yeah, 100%. I think it really is because you kind of summed up really well the Talau knock on first tackle. When if we score a try there, we're was it 8 points we would have been ahead by, or was it because we were?
Yeah,
winning?
It would have been 18-10.
Yeah, so that's a massive swing, and then that Schuster kind of made Leilua look quite silly when he stepped on the inside of him. I just don't think that he can play 80 minutes with how quickly the game's going. But at the same time, we probably don't have the depth in back row, especially when Luke Garner went off injured. But yeah, I'll definitely say in the first half, some terrible one-on-one misses. And then in the second half, some really poor execution in the red zone really let us down this game.
Interesting to look at the stats. I mean, we had 54% possession, so I suppose we're entitled to be in this game. We actually do. It surprised me, Declan. I looked at the NRL ladder and that we actually have the 7th best attack in the competition. So we've got a better attack than pretty much everyone outside the top 8, excluding the Titans. And we've scored more points as well than the Dragons and Sharks. So on a positive, is that a thing that this year has worked in a way that we've got more strike power into this team?
I think that although we were criticised for, I think getting rid of Benji Marshall and bringing in someone like Adam Dury and Dane Laurie as well, I think has really given us another dimension to the attack from that a playmaker point of view. Because I think someone like Adam Dury, he's really shown that he can be a top class 5'8", and then Dane Laurie as well. I think he's just going to go another level. And you say the other teams, I think that if it comes to playing Cronulla for that 8th spot, I would give us every chance to beat them because, I think we've definitely got the firepower to kind of go with those mid-tier teams. It just depends on if we can, defensively keep them out, and that's the main question for me.
I mean, such a player like Tom Trbojevic, it was almost like he was playing, an age or two group below Declan. I think he ran for 327 metres. We actually, I thought, did well in the first half an hour to keep him quiet and kick away from him. But once he got into his groove, Manly, with all that strike power, they sort of really picked apart our edges.
I thought, especially in the first half, I thought Luke Brooks did a really good job of kicking away from him. And he kind of looked a little bit hesitant to kind of get involved in the game. And when he did get involved, he kind of pushed a pass, then led to a mistake. And I thought Adam Dewey did a really good job of defending him. But as you said, as soon as he kind of got into the groove of the game, and when Manly started getting a little bit more of a roll on, he just pretty much tore us apart, which was expected.
I mean, Dewey and Laurie have probably been the two most consistent performers this season. I think they were pretty good again on Saturday night in attack, especially. Did you have any other guys that you thought had, better than 6 or 7 out of 10 games?
I don't know. It's a tough one because you look at someone like Jacob Liddle, who had that really nice break in the first half, and you're just like, oh, maybe he found a bit of form. But then, that try that Dylan Walker scored where he just kind of gave up. You're just like, not much to that one. But I would say Dane Laurie, Adam Dewey, and everyone else was a little bit inconsistent for me. I thought James Tamou, even though he threw that intercept to DCE, which probably should have been a try assist to them, had a really good game except that. And I would probably no one else really comes to mind too much.
I mean, Stefano in the front row had reasonable stats. He was up for 125 metres and Tamou 119. So I think Tamou's been decent the past couple of weeks. Tukey Simpkins, a little bit more involvement from him off the bench. Again, he was 9 runs for 78 metres. He's got a good offload in him. It's just, I suppose, a bit raw at the moment.
I was happy with him because even when he was getting dragged back, he still managed to get that offload free. And you can just see how much of a difference it makes when you're struggling in attack and the other team is pinning you down. Just one of those late offloads, and then let Jacob Liddle just run an extra 20 metres up the field, and suddenly a bad set turns into a good set. So it just shows you how much of a difference it makes.
Junior Polga, he's had some nice moments in attack, but he had a tough night defensively. I think it was 12 or 13 missed tackles. I don't know if all of them are 100% his fault, but I think Manly targeted him with a fair bit of success. I suppose that's to be expected, Declan, a little bit.
I think it's probably the same as last week. When he has the ball, he looks really good, but I'm just not sure if he has the ability to defend out wide at NRL level because you have to make a lot of one-on-one tackles. And I think Morgan Harper scored a hat-trick on was it his side that he scored it on, or was it Talau?
I can't recall, but I know the Manly, definitely Morgan Harper had his field day. I think Junior plays on the left. I think it would have been his side,
look, when another centre gets a hat-trick, and a lot of those tries, he just kind of got on the outside of him. There wasn't really too much that Manly did that was, really good offensively. So, but I do feel kind of sorry for him because, he's not the first choice person, and, he's probably been thrown in because we are desperate in that position. So I do feel for him.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. I think James Roberts might have another week to go in isolation before he's available again. Of course, BJ Lelua's not even up there, so probably stick with him. We do have a couple of injury concerns, I think, out of the game. I think Seyfarth looks like he'll probably be out for a while as well as Garner. Is that right?
Yeah, so they're both out indefinitely. I'm not too sure if that's because they can't see any specialists up there in the bubble, so they can't really diagnose it. But I think I'm not too sure about Garner. But I think they said it was an MCL injury for Seyfarth. So that thankfully it's not an ACL injury, but it could be a few weeks for him.
Again, the bottom of the 8 looks like to me, St George and Cronulla are the teams hanging in there. St George have a tough run home. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop out. I think Cronulla will probably stay in there, Declan, but I think a team like Canberra are starting to hit their straps at the moment. I look at our run home. Potentially we can win 4 or 5 out of 6, but I still don't see it happening.
I don't know, because when we've played the bottom 8 teams, it's just been those 10-minute lapses where they just score 2 tries or 3 tries and we end up chasing our tails. But when we actually play good footy against them, we do look like we can compete. So I don't know. I give us every chance to beat the Bulldogs twice. I give us a chance to beat Cronulla, And I gave us a real chance to beat the Warriors this week without RTS as well, which is a big thing. But we really needed to clinch either this Manly game or the game against Penrith, I think, to really give ourselves a good chance, because, we've really left it to the last minute to kind of make a run for it.
I mean, in an ordinary season, you'd be talking about, the end of the year at 6 wins and 12 losses. But I suppose this is not an ordinary season. You've got teams with the Dragons, I think, in 7th spot, and they've only got 8 wins and going backwards. So there's still a fair bit to play for. But again, the team is still sort of in the headlines, even after a game like Manly, which was not a flogging if you go off the NRL standards this year. But if we were to drop one of those Warriors or Bulldogs games, you can see it sort of blowing up again, at least among the Daily Telegraph journos, can't you?
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird one because, you'd probably say only 6 teams really deserve to play finals footy and everything. But yeah, like we are where we are on the ladder. And yeah, I think all the off-field stuff is kind of making us easy targets for the media, so to speak.
All right, well, we're going to move on from the game fairly quickly. We're going to invite Joel in to have a chat with us, Declan, about how he's seen the season. I'm going to ask you guys some rapid-fire questions, and we're going to talk a bit about some of the state of the club long-term. And here he is. He has been absent this year, but he's been very busy with his professional career, and he's been watching every game, no doubt, from afar. Joel Helmes, nice to hear from you again.
Hello, boys. How are we doing?
Doing very well, Joel. It's a lot of the fans out there in West Tigers podcast land miss your voice. Did you ever think you had the perfect voice for radio? Because I always thought that last year. I thought, I wish I had Joel's voice.
Well, I did work in that industry for an awful long time, so I guess that was one of the tools of the job, I suppose.
Joel, this season, you haven't been on the podcast, but I know you've been watching all the games. We've got our little chat group, and we talk during the games and after, and lament and celebrate when we win. Do the losses still hurt as much as they used to, or is it, as a long-term member like me, you're a little bit worn down?
No, the losses still hurt. The losses hurt just as much as they ever have, and the frustration is there. And I think it's just because it has been so long. It's been now looking likely to be 11 seasons without finals football. It's no wonder we're frustrated. I mean, how can you not be frustrated? And every week, you look at that game against Manly and you just wonder what's going on, and there's no way you can sit there and not get frustrated when you love and care for the club as much as we do. I mean, it's 35 years invested in the Tigers for me now. That's a lot of time, and West Tigers 3 semi-final appearances in 21 years. It's bloody frustrating.
I mean, Joel, time flies, doesn't it? I mean, we started this podcast in 2018, and we were sort of we always kept being hopeful and thinking around 2020, 2021 was the sort of time when things were going to start to be set in motion. I guess my question is, coming into this season, were you optimistic, or did you look at that younger squad and think it was going to be another year of sort of mediocrity?
Yeah, it was mixed feelings, wasn't it? I mean, there was part of me that was, like so many West Tigers fans, that was being pulled towards, well, we've got a bit of experience, we've got a little bit more pace maybe than last year, and then when guys like Dane Laurie came across, it was, okay, maybe there's that possibility. I think the thing is too, is that when you have had a long experience watching teams, you get to see a bit of a flow of how things might turn out. And I remember when Tim Sheens came along in 2004, we could start to see that things were starting to fall in place with some younger players, and you sort of hope that something like that might happen again. Realistically, sitting here after all of these games in 2021, probably the only bright spot, ironically, is the form of a couple of guys that have been added that are in their first year with the club, and that's Stefano and Dane Laurie. I can't see too many other bright spots from what I've seen from the on-field performances.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's true. And I think it's also, we haven't spoken for a while on the podcast just about the NRL this year. How have you sort of found it? Because it's been a very lopsided competition with these new rules. Obviously, there were tweaks last year, but they've gone even further this year. Do you think that's been to the detriment of the product, or do you think that's an easy cop-out for some of the sides that are struggling like ourselves?
Yeah, well, it's a multifaceted question, isn't it? I mean, I hate all the new rule changes. I am a traditionalist, and you know that. I think the more they change it, the better it doesn't become. I think the product going back 10 years, 2005, go back a little bit further, the late 2000s, even the late 90s, you know, that was some pretty good years for rugby league. And I don't think the current product is as good. And I don't watch anywhere near as many games as I used to. I often will find myself watching something else and occasionally checking in to see what the score is. So you'll jump on the NRL website to see what the score is, and you know, you do 9 times out of 10 feel justified by not spending the time watching the game because it's ended up being 50-6, and yeah, it is lopsided. And what is happening at the moment is a great tragedy, because realistically, you know, Eddie, you and I, and Declan as well, we've followed bad West Tigers teams that have struggled. But there was always that chance that the Tigers could come out and just sort of frustrate a better team out of it. Or there was always that opportunity that they might hold them to 10 points and, you know, jag a 12-10 victory over a top 4 team. But today, with today's rules, it's pretty much impossible for one of the lower teams to get over those top 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And I think that's something they'll have to look at the end of the end of the season, because I don't think fans of clubs that are down the bottom year in, year out are going to keep turning up and paying their money if they know on game day they're not a chance or even an off chance to see their side win. But, boys, we had a good stoush last week between Declan and Gary. It was surrounding Tavita Pangai Jr. And this week I'm going to pair you guys up against each other potentially. You might be on the same page, but I'm going to bring a game out of the archives, the buy, sell, hold game. I'll go with you, Declan, first. I've got about 10 questions for you both. We'll stick to one word to start with, and I might get you to expand. Question 1, Madge is still the coach to take us forward. Declan, do you buy or sell that, or are you on the fence holding?
I'm going to hold it just purely because I don't really see a better option at the moment that's presenting itself to us, because, you know, I'm sure we all saw today, you know, Buzz Rothfield really throwing it in hard for someone like Shane Flanagan, even though I'm not too sure he would really do any better than Maguire. And the reason I'm on hold is because if another coach, like maybe someone like Cameron Ciraldo, you know, a young coach with a good reputation in the league who could be mentored under Tim Sheens, I think I could probably buy into that. But at the moment, I'm going to hold because I still have a little bit of faith that Michael Maguire can at least improve this team going forward.
Joel, I remember when Madge was appointed, you were a big fan. I was a big fan. We're very hopeful. Premiership winner. Are you buying that he's still the man to lead us forward?
I'm going to sell, Eddie. I think when we were first talking about Michael Maguire, we were talking about getting rid of the soft underbelly. We were talking about the West Tigers getting some respect, and here we are getting towards the end of another season, and the soft underbelly is softer than ever, I think. Some of those tries scored by Manly, in fact, all of those tries scored by Manly at Suncorp Stadium were soft. They were all soft tries. The soft underbelly is still there. We've had very few injuries. There are no real excuses. So, yeah, I've got to say sell.
So you don't feel sorry for him anyway, that now that, you know, he inherited a squad that was sort of mainly Ivan Cleary's, and that the Tigers haven't been able to, probably for the best part of a decade, recruit players. Do you think he's been on a hiding to nothing, or do you think as the head coach ultimately you've got to take the responsibility, especially given the fact he came in with a mindset as a defensive coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's two separate questions, isn't it, really? Because you have to work with what you have, and there are plenty of other coaches in the game that have had worse rosters than what we've had and have had them playing consistently better football. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I don't see how the West Tigers have improved as a team since Michael Maguire got here. I think we've gone backwards, and it's pretty scary because at this current point in time, and me, who sits here as a paid-up West Tigers member and lifetime fan, foundation fan of the West Tigers, I think we're in all sorts of trouble for 2022.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, I think there's still a lot of Tigers fans like Declan and myself. I'm probably more hold. I don't want to let Madge go because I'm not convinced on a solution, Joel. Do you have a solution, a coach that you would target as a senior coach like Flanagan, or a rookie coach in the system, or a Ciraldo? Is there someone out there that may be a better fit than Madge?
Well, I remember, and look, I know a lot of the time I do talk, and it is a bit of a history lesson, but I remember back in the very early days of the West Tigers, there was a young assistant coach up at Brisbane. He had a few raps on him, but people were saying, a young club like this, it needs a strong, foundation sort of coach, someone who's experienced, and that was Craig Bellamy. Sometimes you've got to find the next Bellamy. And that's where the West Tigers need to be. They need to find the next Bellamy, the next best coach that can talk to this generation of players, that's energised, that's respected, that's very good statistically. That's what the West Tigers need to find. And I don't know who that is. It might be Serraldo, it might be Ben Gardner. I don't know what it is, but we have to find the next Bellamy.
Last one on Madge, Joel. I watched the doco last week and a few times this year, and I look up at his coaching box, and I don't see a lot of help around him. I mean, there was rumours that when he was sacked by South, that he was worried that Seibold had sort of white-handed him. Do you think he's sort of surrounded himself with guys who are not a threat, or do you think that perhaps he could be saved by getting assistant coaches in with a bit more maybe experience as a first-grade coach around him?
Yeah, but, I did notice in that game against Manly that he had Wayne Collins and Shane Millard there in the box with him, which is the first time I've seen Wayne Collins, I think, in the box. It maybe if ever, but certainly for a long time. So that was a little bit of a change, and I thought that must have come out of the West Tigers Tales from Tiger Town documentary, where a few people on the forum were saying, why is Madge basically just sitting there talking to himself? Look, I don't know the inner workings. I don't know the personalities. I think that the issue is that if Madge isn't 100% cemented into the job with the full backing of the board, he is the man and he's given the license to coach and they're going to build a team around him, then there is going to be that issue with he's going to be looking over his shoulder. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation at the moment. I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I know the fans on the forum talk a lot about the assistants, but I'm not that fussed. If you've got the right head coach, then your assistants. I don't think of it as big an issue as what some of my fellow fans are talking about.
Okay, wait and see what happens. But boys, next buy sell hold, we're going to talk about players a little bit. Declan, I think I know what you're going to say here. Luke Brooks, is it time to cut bait at the end of the season? Buy, sell, or hold?
At the risk of getting a lot of hate from the Brooks fans, I'm going to say sell. Just purely because I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a good NRL player, but to me, he's just not an organising halfback. I think that he is a 5'8" playing in a halfback's body. And just for an example, I remember, I think it was in the second half when we were on Manly's line, and he just put a grubber kick in the fourth tackle, and you could tell none of his outside backs really even knew that he was going to kick it. And he ended up nearly actually getting it because it was a good chase, but it was a terrible kick and it gave away a 7-tackle set, which I think Manly might have scored from. And to me, that just says that he's not really thinking about a particular game plan. He's more reliant on his instincts. And that's all well and good. But I just think when you have 2 5'8" in the team in your halves, we did look a little disorganized. And then, if you're going to choose between someone like Adam Dewey in the team and someone like Luke Brooks, I think it's Adam Dewey all day of the week because he's younger and he's already playing better. So I'm going to sell Luke Brooks just purely because I don't like how the combination is developed this year.
Joel, Brooks and David Norfoluma are probably the two players or definitely who've spent the longest time here. Where do you sit on Brooks? Is it time to sell him off?
I've always been on the fence, and my opinions changed week to week. And ironically, I think he's playing pretty well. But certainly the last few games, I thought he's played okay. He's probably our best defensive player, which is an interesting thing to say about your halfback. Look, I think that, and I don't mean this with any degree of criticism of Luke Brooks, but if I look at it from a perspective of what might be best for the team, what might be best for Luke Brooks, is maybe a change of clubs might be a good thing for both of us.
Fair enough. Next question, boys. Adam Dewey is the long-term 6 and captain of this side. Declan, buy or sell?
I'm going to buy it just purely because, you kind of look at his demeanour, how he talks, and, that Tiger Town documentary, I think it was interesting because it kind of showed that, someone like Adam Dewey has a lot of respect around the playing group. And I think something like that is really important because, you know, we've bought a lot of like senior guys into the club, but they just haven't really played that well. But Adam Dewey's in that position where he's a well-respected person, but he's also playing at a very high level. And I think that's really important when your senior playing group is kind of telling the other players what to do. You have to be able to play at that really high level so you have the respect amongst the playing group. And yeah, I just think they should invest in him long term. I think 5'8" is the position he looks best at. And yeah, I would be very shocked if he didn't captain the team at some point in the future.
You buying Adam Dewey, Joel?
Yeah. We've got to stick with Adam Dewey. He's a class act. And 5'8". Look, I understand we probably shifted him out to the centres to get a little bit more defence out wide, but he's got to be the 5'8" long term, surely, and captain material as well by the look of it.
Okay. Speaking of captains, Declan, next one, James Tarmo has been a massive disappointment this season. Buy or sell?
You got to buy it. I mean, as harsh as it sounds, and I do agree with you, I think he's played pretty well the last few games. I think, you know, he was averaging 150 metres last year at Penrith, and although you would expect a little bit of, of a decrease in that stat, I think he's like kind of plummeted a little bit in terms of his production. And although he is a leader of the team, he's still the starting front rower, and you kind of need to, you know, he needs to have more impact than what he's had this season in terms of like offense and defense as well.
What have you made of Tarmo, Joel? Are you buying him as a captain for another year, or do you think he's been a flop?
I'm on the fence. I'm holding. It's really hard to say. I mean, some of the things that I've heard him talking about, he seems to really be a good leader, which I think the club has needed. He certainly contributed more than Russell Packer has, so he has to be a big success in that regard. But certainly, I think that having Twal and Tarmo as starting props was a mistake, and I think that he's looked better, ironically, with Stefano there than with Twal partnering up there in the front row. So I think the jury's still out. I get what you're saying. He hasn't set the world on fire, but you know, he's held his own okay.
A little bit of stuff around sort of management and governance. We're going to talk on this a lot later, some of the issues around the club, but just a couple of quick fire ones. Declan, Tim Sheens is a good signing and will help turn things around.
I'm buying it because, you know, Tim Sheens, he's probably the only one in the organisation that's been in charge of a successful culture and a team that's like played fair and footy. Like, I know Adam Hardigan was at the Roosters, but, you know, he probably wasn't, you know, the head honcho, so to speak. So, yeah, I just think that, more of a hope that Tim Sheens comes in, he kind of sees what's dysfunctional and what's not, and he will also have the kind of the gravitas and the kind of name to change things in a positive way. So, yeah, I'm buying it. What
do you think, Joel, in the role that he's been appointed by?
Well, does anybody really know what the role is? I mean, if you go strictly with what we've heard, and it has been a little bit of a variation in what we've heard, but I think that it's only potentially a good thing to have a man of his experience and his gravity in the game. I think he is, as Declan said, the only man who's ever achieved any success at West Tigers. So having him back is a good thing. But like any appointment like this, it all depends on how much support we give him, how much autonomy we give him, how much power we give him. If he's just going to be a cog in the system, then we may not get the massive results that a lot of my fellow fans are hoping for.
If you were in charge, Joel, would you be clearly defining to Tim that this is your role and this is where you will stay, or would it be a wait-and-see situation? If someone like Madge was to fall by the wayside, would you be open to someone like Tim coming back into the head coaching role?
I think so. Maybe not for a long time, but maybe in a caretaker kind of capacity for maybe a year or so. If we identified a young coach that what we wanted to take over long term, maybe Tim could sort of batten down the hatches for a while and get things ticking along. I think that surely when an organisation doesn't reach its objectives, you have to have some sort of review. And I wonder if Tim might be the person that might be able to look through the organisation from top to bottom and make his recommendations as to where things might not be working out.
Well, he'll get back in a couple of weeks. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing from Tim Sheens because he left on bad terms, and it's been a decade. He's been basically away, and the club hasn't made the final since. So interesting. Now, Justin Pascoe, this is going to be a bit of a talking point later on. He's got his fans, he's got his critics. He sort of lit up Twitter this week. I don't know if you guys saw that with his appearance on the documentary, and some people comparing his hairstyle to Keith Urban, and they sort of were taking the piss out of him a little bit. Declan, do you think he's had his time and it's time to move on, or do you think you're going to buy that? What are you holding on that?
I'm going to hold on it just purely because I think that at the moment, like as a fan, I'm very confused as to like who to blame, so to speak, because if you talk to the club, they'll tell you that they actually genuinely don't know why the team's not performing. If you talk to like Buzz Rothfield, it's because the players don't want to play under match. If you talk to Paul Kent, it's because the administration, that it's their problem. So as a fan, I'm just a little bit confused in the fact that I thought that Justin Pascoe, I didn't really think that he recruited players until the whole Canberra rumour last week came out, and it was like pretty much stated that he contacted the CEO to talk about players. So before I would have said probably like hold, because like his strength is the more financial side of the company, but at the same time I think that the way he's kind of handled the recruitment this season gives me a little bit of a worry. So I'm going to say hold.
Hey Joel, Justin Pascoe, is it time for him to move on? He's been a big talking point, I think, this season. Sort of been in the shadows a little bit in the last few years, but where do you stand on the current CEO of the club?
I think my feeling with Justin, and it's something we have spoken about before, is that I think that, you have to look at an individual's strengths and weaknesses. And I think Justin is the guy that you could probably put there to run the financials of the club, to drive sponsorship, to do a lot of the ancillary things that aren't necessarily related to selling a vision, to driving a vision, driving a culture. So I think he's got his strengths and weaknesses, and I think that you can see within the organisation, even as an outsider looking in, that there are many good things about what's happened under his control at the West Tigers, but a lot of things seem to have not worked. A lot of things seem to be stale or convoluted or not quite working out. So that makes me wonder if he is the right person for that top job. That's not to say that he doesn't have the ability to be a good operator in different roles and things like that. I just don't know if he's the CEO. I've always seen him as more of a CFO kind of guy, just the guy that you want running books, but not necessarily driving the whole organisation.
Okay, we'll go in depth a little bit more with a few other management guys soon. Declan, around recruitment, do you think this junior development pathway is a quicker or smarter way back into the top 8 than going out and recruiting? You're going to buy, sell, or hold that?
I'm gonna sell it because it's not going to be a quicker fix, but it's probably going to be a more sustainable fix because. I think Phil Gould said if you buy your way into the top 8, you might have your time in the spotlight, but eventually you probably will like tumble down, so to speak. But if you're continuously kind of developing crops of football players that turn into stars, you're probably going to be on top for a much longer amount of time. I mean, you look at teams like the Melbourne Storm and like even now, like the Penrith Panthers, they're probably going to be good for a very, very long time because they're not buying these players for inflated amounts on the market. So they have room in the salary cap to fit more people in because there's that sense of there's more value, so to speak. So I think that it's good to like invest in juniors, but the only problem is it's a bit of a slow grind. And, I think fans are probably going to have to be a little bit more patient if they go down that route.
Pointing Tim Sheens, Joel, and Brett Camorley in the pathway role. I mean, the last time I thought we threatened to be a really good side in 16, 17, we had guys like Tedesco and Moses and juniors like that. Do you see that as the future, or do you think it's a bit of a cop-out of the fact that we haven't been able to recruit marquee players?
I think what the club does in any direction that it goes in regards to any strategies, it needs to do a really good job of it. So It's a very important part of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle for sure. I mean, let's go back again, and the West Tigers time tunnel, the 2005 team, it won the premiership. Yeah, we had Liam Fulton, and we had Benji Marshall, and we had Scandalis, a lot of local products, but they wouldn't have achieved what they achieved if it wasn't for Shane Elford, Paul Fatawira, Todd Payton, Scott Prince, Pat Richards, all guys that we went out and purchased for different reasons from different clubs. So you have to have a mix. You cannot rely completely on juniors. You'll be just spinning your wheels in 8th or 9th spot forever, unless you happen to stumble across, an awesome group of 12 guys that you can put in there. But that's a big risk. You have to have a mix, and obviously, maximising what we're doing out of the juniors is good business.
Well, boys, that's the end of our buy, sell, and hold game. But let's talking about some of the big issues. Just on that, key players, signing key players. Declan, I mean, Adam Hardigan is officially the recruitment manager. He's in charge of recruitment, and you got Madge, the head coach. You've got Sheens coming in. What do you think? Who is the guy who should be held responsible? I suppose because it's been hard to watch this week because you've got just the media just taking pot shots at the fact we've missed out. We missed out on Otto Carr, we missed out on Latrell Mitchell, seemingly lost the fight to the Dogs for Tavita Pangai, and now Dale Finucane has gone to Cronulla. And there was varying reports of how interested and how in-depth we were in talks with those guys. It's a point we've talked about a lot, but who do you see as the person, I suppose, that what needs to change to bring this thing to an end where we can actually recruit players to the club?
Well, I think that's
winning would help.
Yeah, winning would definitely help. But I think that's the problem. I think that, I just look at the organisation and I genuinely don't know who to blame it on because, yes, Adam Hardigan is the head of, the negotiations, but then you've got the chairman, going on, live radio and kind of making declarations that the club isn't interested in Tavita Pangai Jr. And then a week later, we get an article from McCutcheon saying, actually, no, we're back in negotiations again. And just the amount of damage that did, because we basically told Tavita Pangai Jr. in public that he wasn't the right fit for us. And then to go back to the negotiation table, it's really amateur. And then, the rumours about Pascoe phoning up another CEO, offering players as well. So, yeah, for me, it's really hard to pinpoint one guy. And now Adam Hardigan is kind of facing a bit of criticism as well. So I'm just not too sure because it just doesn't look like there's a clear chain of command at the moment in terms of recruitment.
Joel, with recruitment, I think, I've praised Adam Hardigan for getting some of the better younger players around the country over the past year or two. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of that bearing fruit, even though the NRL results haven't been great. But do you think he's someone who has to take more responsibility for this, or is it someone like Madge who, after being here for 3 years and no doubt being involved in some of those conversations with those big players, hasn't been able to get some of those deals over the line?
Oh, I think that it would be a great shame if this club parted ways with Adam Hardigan at any point in the near future. I think that he is one bright spot and one guy that sets standards that some other people I don't think are able to reach at a consistent level. I think he's somebody that we have to continue investing in and backing. I think if you look at what's happening, there is politics. There are, like any organisation, especially when things aren't going well, I think that factions start to emerge. I think that, a point we're going to talk about a little bit later, I think some of the management on top of Adam Hardigan is problematic. Well,
let's talk about Justin Pascoe. He said on the documentary last week, boys, that West Tigers have high expectations and within the organisation want to excel. Over the past 5 years, you could argue, Declan, that off the field there has been progress made, but over the last 5 years, comparing them to every other NRL club, where have we excelled over the past 5 years?
Well, the Centre of Excellence is definitely something you can kind of point to. And I know fans are probably, tired of that being the golden carrot that's kind of dangled, but, it is true. It is an achievement that the club has made. And in terms of other things, our Jersey flag team before the COVID cancelled everything was undefeated. our junior recruitment is getting back on track, I think. But yeah, it's probably hard, especially from the last 5 years, to pinpoint like an area where you can comprehensively say we're beating other clubs, because it's just not the truth.
John?
Yeah, I can't really think of any area. Not taking anything away from you, Declan, but it's great to see the junior teams doing better. That's great, but in terms of the actual organisation, in terms of kicking goals and setting standards in the game, I can't really name anything. I suppose the Centre of Excellence is a very good thing, but I mean there was politics involved with that, with the local council and state and federal governments and things like that. And you have to give Justin Pascoe a pat on the back. He did bring it all together and was a major contributor to that, and that's excellent. That's definitely his legacy, I think, for West Tigers. You could probably make an argument that the club's, at least profitable, but in terms of setting standards, in terms of being a leader in the game, West Tigers are just not there, I don't think, in any way.
Do you think, Joel, because, I mean, if you said, Justin Pascoe, he would have signed off or been responsible for signing someone like Ivan Cleary and then signing Michael Maguire and getting this centre of excellence over the line. Do you think it's primarily falls on him, or do you think underneath him maybe there's a lack of support or stuff? Because I saw him in that documentary, and he's the sort of guy that comes across as quite laid back. He even said, "I'm quite casual. I never get too high and too low." But I think some Tigers fans get frustrated at that, because I think they need a leader with a little bit more, bite the bullet and make decisions. And we still got 5 home grounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what I want to see is somebody that just about will bleed for the place. Somebody that has the club's that really does live and breathe the club and feels the pain, because it's the pain, and it's allowing yourself to feel the pain, to feel the disappointments, that makes you a better operator. The trouble is we keep doing things and nothing ever changes. And maybe that's just the fact that, and Justin used the analogy himself, the duck calm on top of the water, but paddling like hell underneath. But maybe sometimes you actually need to sink. You need to feel it. You need to find a way of recentering and coming back stronger. And I would feel better as a fan if I knew there was somebody there that was willing to really face the music and really pull this place through what it needs. And that's what it comes back to, worrying if he's maybe not the right man to be selling the vision and leading the club to greater things.
Okay. Well, I know, Joel, we spoke a couple of years, frustration at times at, getting a sort of a vision out there for the fans and for the members, and that things, just little things like injuries weren't communicated last year. But do you, Declan, I'll go to you first. Do you sort of feel like at the moment the club is a bit of a punching bag for media headlines? I mean, you mentioned the thing about Pascoe potentially getting on the phone and trading Luke Brooks for Jack Whiten. Now, we don't know if that's true. That could just be made up. But there's no sort of rebuttal from the club. And then that sort of goes on and swells, and we become a bit of a laughing stock. So do you think that's an area where we need to have a leader? I don't know if that's Pascoe or someone in the media department who can actually address some of these things.
I do understand that the club can respond to every rumour and every kind of thing that's said on these television shows. But at the same time, what James Hooper did was he just took the piss out of the club. And honestly, as a West Tigers fan, I just felt embarrassed. And I think that the club really does need to get on top of that sort of stuff, whether it be hire like a media relations person or release a statement saying that it wasn't true, something like that. Because imagine if you're, a player agent or a player who's like on the fence about signing with the Tigers, and then that comes out, and it just makes us look even more like a basket case than we might actually be. So I just think that kind of stuff is just so damaging for fans, for potential members, and for players as well. It's just really bad business, and I think the club probably should have done a better job of getting ahead of it.
Is that where you feel sorry for someone like Pascoe a little bit, Joel, in that some of the things out there in the media might be so far from the truth that we just don't know? Or do you think that's their responsibility to try and knock some of those things on the head or clarify things said in the media?
I think we're either got to make the decision whether we're a professional organisation or we're an organisation that runs a team out on the weekend that that plays football, and we sell a few memberships. I mean, any organisation that's a multi-million-dollar organisation that's copping a hit consistently in the media has to do something about it. Yeah, you have to take steps to turn that around. And sometimes having a really strong PR person just there, someone that's going to pick up the phone to the journalist and say, hey, you've got that wrong. You've got that wrong. And here's the proof that you got that story wrong. And we'd appreciate it if you could put our side of the story out. Okay? That's what a strong PR manager does. And I remember back in my day when I was writing car reviews, every single car manufacturer had a PR team, or at least a PR person. And if you drove one of their cars and was unfairly critical of it, they'd be on the phone straight away. And you'd be thinking to yourself, next time you reviewed one of their cars, well, I'd better be a bit make sure I'm really fair here, or not put the boot in too much, because that's the way it worked. It was that counterbalance, I suppose, to the vacuum that you create when you go silent. And again, it comes back to the respect word. The club is not protecting its brand. It's not demanding respect. It's just a kicking and whipping boy for other clubs, other fans, journalists, publications, and it's really disheartening.
As we look at organisations that have had a lot of success in the NRL, the Roosters and Melbourne Storm, and they've been up there for 10 or 15 years, and people say it's just they're cheating the salary cap, or they get all the good players, but there's got to be a little bit more to it. I found our club's mission statement, Joel, I'll start with you, is enriching the lives of the community. Is that a mission statement that spells high performance and success, or not?
I think it's dreadful, Eddie. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it stands for. Do you, as a member and a fan, understand what the club's stated goal is? Because that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I've seen clubs in the past come out with sort of dossiers saying we want to win, 2 premierships in the next 6 years. I think the Bulldogs did that under Des Hasler, and that was a disaster because they didn't reach it. But at least I suppose they were setting those performance targets and to their members. I guess you're saying this statement, there's nothing in there about winning or about, when you come to the club, you're going to be a better player or a winner.
Yeah, well, let's contrast that with the Melbourne Storm. So their mission statement is to experience the thrill of competing and winning together. And I mean, doesn't that encapsulate the Melbourne Storm in what, 9 or 10 words? And the West Tigers, enriching the lives of our community. I mean, I just don't understand what that means. Does that mean that we have junior rugby league players, or we visit schools? I just don't understand it. And it's just the wrong mission statement for an NRL club.
Okay. I don't confess to know how long we've had that mission statement, Joel, or who comes up with something like that, but do you have any idea how long that's been there?
A couple of years, I think.
A couple of years, okay. Declan, do you think anything about this? Does it speak to a mindset of mediocrity, or are we being a bit harsh?
Oh, look, at the end of the day, it is just, words on a piece of paper. I don't really think it's the reason why we are where we are. I mean, you talk about the Melbourne Storm's mission statement and everything, but there's 100 different reasons why the Storm are where they're at and why we're in the position we're in right now. And I don't really think it has much to do with the mission statement, to be honest.
Yeah, but just imagine, Declan, you're a player that's coming in to potentially, look at joining the West Tigers, and you walk in and you ask the club, so what's your mission statement? They say, well, we want to enrich the lives of our community. Okay, that's great, but what about the football team? What about me as a player?
I suppose, well, obviously they would make that argument as well. Like, I don't really see many players, to be fair, asking about the mission statement of a club, because, to be honest, like before this podcast, I had no idea what the Tigers' mission statement was, and I'm sure that these conversations are being had behind closed doors about, what can you offer me as a player? How can I improve under you? How can I reach my potential as a player? And I think that kind of stuff, it all sounds very good and idealistic, so to speak. And it is important for an organisation. I'm not saying it's not, but I just think in terms of the playing group, I don't think it really means that much, to be honest.
I mean, Joel, when new players potentially want to come to the Tigers in the future, surely something like a centre of excellence with maybe a new mission statement out in front could be used as something to be enticing.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and as a parent, and I don't have a son that's looking at playing rugby league or anything like that, but I do try and look at and use it as a bit of a gauge and think to myself, if I did have a 19-year-old son that was looking to move into an NRL club, as much as I love the West Tigers, I think from what I can see from the outside looking in terms of, how the organisation runs and where it's at and what the results have been, I don't know if I would necessarily be pushing them in that direction. And I think that it's just, I understand, Declan, you're absolutely right to say that the mission statement doesn't miss tackles. The mission statement doesn't not kick goals, but it's just a small little window, I think, into an overall lack of confidence, strength, determination, and will to be better than where we're at. It's just so wishy-washy.
Okay. Boys, next talking point, the current governance. Is there a messy situation potentially ahead with the chain of command? Because I think there's never been a time where we've had more sort of people with experience in charge. We're going to have Tim Sheens as sort of head of football. We're going to have Adam Hartigan, head of recruitment, Madge as your head coach, and you've got Justin Pascoe, CEO, and of course Lee Hadjibentelis, the chairman. Declan, can you see all that mixing together and working towards the same goal, or do you think there's going to be maybe one or two sort of changes there, or will the dynamic work? Because they're definitely pumping more money into these positions. Tim Sheen's position and Adam Hartigan's positions. Justin Pascoe or whoever is spending this money is surely spending it to try and make the football team better.
Well, something's got to give, doesn't it? Because as it's currently constructed, it's not working. And I think we can all kind of see that because, like last year, I think was the kind of first time when I got the feeling that, like, hang on, maybe we're not really going in the right direction. And that was with the trail stuff and recruitment. And it's only really been like confirmed to me from my point of view in terms of us going in the right direction and building a culture that other people from outside want to be a part of. So I think that something really has to change. I'm not too sure what in terms of like who bears the brunt of that responsibility, but I think you've got to change it. And I think it's a real problem when the chairman, comes out and makes big calls about recruitment and kind of gives insight when it's so up in the air all the time. I think that's a real problem. And then it makes me worried as well, because what if, he's not the chairman anymore, but he's still the major sponsor, all this kind of stuff. It's very worrying to me. And I think that's why it kind of needs to change, because I can't see it being sustainable long term.
What do you reckon, Joel? Is there potential to have too many cooks there at the moment next year?
Yeah, I think it's not talking so much about the lower level, but I think certainly having your major sponsor and your chair, I think that now that we can look at, a year or so down the track of having that situation, I think it's unhealthy. I think that Lee's got too much power. I think that, he's tipping in the money and we congratulate him and thank him for that. That's fantastic for the club. But I think it's very, very murky because ultimately, if he's paying the majority of the bills and he says, hey, guys, I want David Nofaluma. I do not want to lose him. I want him re-signed. And he gets overcalled over guys whose jobs are on the line in regards to football performance. I think that's a very messy and very scary situation. I don't like that at all. I think that, Eddie, you and I used to say, where's Barry O'Farrell? We've gone from one extreme to the other. Lee seems to be completely hands-on. Again, congratulations, Lee. Thanks for sponsoring us, but I don't know if this is workable. And I don't think it's workable, especially given the West side of, the actual board. They're appointed by West Ashfield, and West Tigers fans members have absolutely no say over who's running the club. I think it's completely unworkable the way it is at the moment. And as somebody who for many, many years and continues to be a Balmain Football Club member, and we always had that chance to vote every year for the board, I think it's really, really worrying the way the governance of the club is at the moment. I don't think it's right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Is Tim Sheen someone potentially, Declan, who can come in and fix all this and talk? I suppose we don't know where he fits. So, I mean, does he sit above everyone now? Does he fit ahead of, Lee and Pascoe in terms of decision making? I suppose that's something fans would maybe like to know.
So from what I've heard, Tim Sheen's his role is mainly on like junior development pathways, with an option to be an opinion if Maguire wants it, and he only really reports to directly to Justin Pascoe. So he's more of an advisor, from what I've been told. He's not really someone who can over command Adam Hardigan, for example. But I do think naturally someone with his experience and just the way things are going at the moment, people probably will gravitate to his opinion, just purely because he's been successful. He's a former super coach in NRL. He's still got that kind of reputation amongst the league. And even though he doesn't have the position in paper, I think that someone like Adam Hardigan, someone like Michael Maguire, who was coached by him, will probably be very influenced by his opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not a fan, Joel, of someone like Shane Flanagan, just because of his sort of murky past. But there's no doubt when he was in charge of Cronulla, he was the man doing the recruiting. He was the head coach. He was bringing in Luke Lewis. He was bringing in Wade Graham, Andrew Fafita, all these guys. And you look at Wayne Bennett and South, I'm sure he's the guy who brings in the recruiting. It's him who sort of pushes players over the line. Do we need to go to the sort of – is that the problem? Is that Madge hasn't been able to recruit guys, so we're now creating all these positions to maybe help him?
Yeah, well, how does it work? Because that's the question that we don't know, because we aren't ever given any idea, because the club doesn't try and put out its side of the story in regards to anything. But, okay, so the club finds out that Tevita Pangai Jr. is on the outer with the Broncos and potentially is coming up for availability. Okay, so maybe Adam Hardigan says to Justin Pascoe, hey, what do you think of Tevita Pangai? His stats look good. He's going to be available. I think we can get him for this amount of money. Does it go any further if Justin says, no, I don't like it? Or does Justin say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go and have a chat to Lee. And Lee says, no, I don't like it. He's not a good fit for the club. And then that's it. It doesn't happen. And then the media starts to get involved, and they got busted going up there to Brisbane on a fishing trip, a fishing expedition. And all of a sudden it changes. So does it change because Lee picks up the phone and says, "Hey boys, we're copying some flack over Tevita Pangai Jr. We better put an offer in." I mean, we don't know what's going on, but one thing I do know, it is too many cooks spoil the broth. And we're getting pulled in too many different directions, selling too many different messages about who this club is and what this club is and where it's going. And I'm sure that the players all talk, and the fact that people are not signing up for this club to play for this club is a sign that something is not working and something's not right, or multiple things aren't right.
We've had, when we say we're having a star recruitment in the past, we've still had some big names, boys, Adam Blair and James Tarmo and the likes. And the next question is going to be, what is a West Tigers player? Joel, I think of guys like Robbie Farron, Liam Fulton, and maybe Brad Hodgson, guys who come up through the juniors and sort of would spill blood for the club. That to me was a West Tigers player. Are we lacking sort of one of those, guys who have come through the club and it means a little bit more to them at the moment? Is that one of the I guess the downsides of the current squad, that we've sort of got a mix of guys, new guys coming in and senior guys who haven't really invested so much of their life in West Tigers?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if you look at the club is struggling for identity in one shape or in many different shapes and forms. Half the time we don't even know what West Tigers actually are. What is this organisation? Who does it represent? What is the area that it represents? And then within the actual team itself, you've got guys like Adam Dewey, who was a Balmain junior, and you've got Luke Brooks, of course, and Nofaluma is a junior as well. But there just doesn't seem to be any West Tigers players that really represent what the club is and have been guys that have sort of grabbed the club by the scruff of the neck and dragged it along. And Robbie Farah definitely did. And we sort of mucked that up, didn't we? We made a good old mess of Robbie's legacy in a lot of ways, and not to say that Robbie was completely without fault, but I think that he always had good intentions of where he wanted this club to go. But yeah, I think the identity, it's a bit vanilla, isn't it? There's a lot of guys in the team now that aren't necessarily West Tigers players. And, and further to that, I wonder if the club ever stops and thinks about, we sign these guys and they do a job for us, but, what are we contributing back to their life aside from putting money in their bank account every month? Are the guys that come out the other end of West Tigers, are they better people? Are they more educated? Are they, more socially educated, et cetera, et cetera? So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at, I think, in regards to that.
Let's just staying with you, Joel, for a sec. That's one thing that, players tend to come to this club and they get lambasted. Moses Mbai, Josh Reynolds, Russell Packer, Adam Blair, guys who come in, and I'm sure they have the best of intentions and they're professional footballers. Are we sometimes as fans too harsh on the players when you have a culture of, I guess, of mediocrity around you, and you sort of, you play down to that level? Is that something that can possibly happen when new players sign? I don't think it's as simple as they come over here for a holiday.
No, you wouldn't think so, would you? So is it the situation where the football department isn't? Look, what is our strike rate, Eddie? I'll throw it back to you. What's our strike rate in regards to getting the best possible performance out of each individual player? See, I think that's where we're really poor. If you really judge us, like if you look at Moses Mbai and you look at the entirety of his career, you might say he's a little bit less than what his career average has been in terms of his output. But guys like Russell Packer, I know you take injuries and a few other things into it, but so many players have come here, and especially in the last decade, and their overall and their performance has decreased. And I think that the only variable in that is every time it's West Tigers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's one of the things I thought about Dale Finucane is, like, I'm a big fan of his, and I think Craig Bellamy called him the most professional player he's ever coached. But I have that feeling in my head is, oh my God, if we sign him for 4 years, would he look completely different in a West Tigers jersey? And that's not necessarily because he's signed off. It's just that he's been in a system of success for so long where everyone knows their role. I guess that's sort of your point there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing is with culture, and I'm not saying that the club's got a bad culture. I don't know. I'm not making a definitive statement in regards to that. But having worked in businesses that have good cultures and bad cultures, the trouble with bad cultures is that the good people leave. The good people don't stay, or the good people, watch the clock until they can get out. And I wonder if some of that has gone on, and I wonder if some of the professionalism in the football department, maybe throughout the organisation, hasn't quite been at the standard of some of these other clubs that these players have come out of. I'm sure, looking at the slick Melbourne Storm operation and the way it operates, if you came to West Tigers, you'd probably notice the difference, and it's pretty sad to say.
Okay. Declan, I remember when Braithen asked to come over, and I thought, to be honest, he was a player who did go through the motions when he came to the Tigers, and was probably semi-retired, and we probably offered him too much money than what he was worth. But he also does say, and I know Tigers fans hate him, and I don't particularly like listening to his commentary, he does sort of say, one of the big mistakes I made when I signed for the Tigers was I didn't go and visit any of their facilities or anything, and he said he was taken aback at how basic it sort of was, having been in the Roosters and the Bulldogs before that. Where do you sit on that in terms of players just owning their own performance, or whether you think, players can be affected by going from maybe a stronger club to a weaker club?
Yeah, I think that, but obviously at the end of the day, when you sign that big contract, there is expectations that come with it. Moses Mumbai, looking back, you wouldn't offer him that much money, but at the same time, he did accept it, and he's taken the money, and he just hasn't really failed to live up to expectations. So in my mind, it's pretty fair to criticise how he's played on the field. In terms of guys like Braithen Asta, there's like a dozen examples of guys that we signed when they were already past it, maybe even James Hamill might fall in that category, Russell Packer, Ben Malino, all those guys we got absolutely no value out of them and signed them just like even before, they dipped in terms of form. But I'd like to just like point out that we have kind of unearthed a few gems in the last 10 years. I mean, like the obvious ones like Mitchell Moses, James Tedesco, but then you look at guys like Josh Adokar, who we signed from the 20s from Cronulla, guys like Blake Austin as well, who like had like pretty good NRL careers up to that point. Guys like Nela Paseka, who was like in the 20s, Brian Pappenhausen. But the problem was we just didn't retain them. So I think the club, although their identification of talent in terms of like the senior players isn't that good, I think the main problem in the last 10 years is just not being able to hang on to the right ones and then sending the wrong ones to then make it even more of a snowball effect in terms of the overall playing squad.
Well, boys, I mean, just to sort of finish off and cap it off, because it's been a long podcast and it's been good to get Joel's thoughts because Joel hasn't been on all year and I can see he's just as passionate as he always was. But Joel, do you sort of, at the moment, are you more, I guess, pessimistic than you've ever been, or do you think this is something that can turn around in the next 18 months if we get things right?
Yeah, I have some faith in Adam Hardigan. I have some faith in the junior pathways. I have some faith in some of the basic fundamental parts of the club, but there are many parts of the club where I have lost faith, and that's really, really sad for me to say and really hard for me to say. And I think that things are going to have to get worse before they get better. And it's heartbreaking. I look at this club like a child. I voted for it. I was there for game one. I've been there through the thick and the thin, and it's. I think we're in a world of pain.
Right, Declan. What about next year? Do you see it? I mean, you were annoyed at missing out on Tavita Pangai Jr. Are you worried that the clubs like Canterbury, who are going to get the wooden spoon this year, they could go past us next year and we'll be stuck even lower potentially with a wooden spoon? Or do you think some of our younger players can actually rise up next year and there is some hope?
Look, there's always hope because at the end of the day, we don't know. Dane Laurie could like come out next season and be a Dally M player because that like experience from this season just turns him into like a much better player. And the same Stefano as well. Like he could just absolutely blitz it next season. Well, there's just no way of knowing. But at the same time, you look at teams like the Broncos as well. They've signed Adam Reynolds. They've got Ben Aiken in as well, who's probably going to do good things for them. And then, as you said, the Bulldogs, like the two teams below us, they look a lot stronger for next year. And it just leads me to believe that, we've only really signed Jackson Hastings, who could be a really good player. We just don't really know. But like the conversion rate from coming back from the Super League with backs isn't very great, which is why, I have a few question marks on Oliver Gildart as well, because even though he's played well there, there's no guarantee that he's going to be successful like here in the NRL, especially in a team that's not going that crash hot at the moment. And those are our only recruits so far. So how can you say to me that, we're going to be better next year, even though we haven't really added a lot to the team, except a little bit more experience for our younger players? It's just not something that gives me a lot of confidence going forward.
On the recruitment for next year, Joel, I mean, it looks fairly bare at the moment. They do have, like Declan mentioned, Hastings and Gildart coming on. There's even, Aaron Woods is looking for a club at the moment. Is that a player that you would like to see back, or would that just sort of depress you even more?
I think that the recruitment at this stage needs to be around centres, and it needs to be around the back row. I think we need more of a ball-playing lock, someone who can provide a different attacking set of skills from lock forward. And I think we need to do something about the 11 and the 12 and the centres. They need to be the areas where the most recruitment or where the recruitment focus needs to be. Jackson Hastings is a decent player, but we currently have a halfback. We currently have a 5'8". There was talk of playing him at lock, but who knows? There's so many variables in regards to that. Just at this stage, you can only talk off the opportunity, the information that you have at hand. And as I say, I'm not hopeful at all. And normally, Eddie, I'm pretty hopeful. As you know, I'm normally thinking we can sneak into the 8 and that things will get better. But at the moment, I'm at a pretty low point, actually.
Okay, well, let's finish with a bit of a. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds notice, boys. A bit of a plan for 2022. If you were in charge, in terms of, I just wrote down little things. I give Maguire the start of the year. I'd say to him, we're going to try and bring in maybe one or two assistant coaches who are a little bit more intact with the tactical side of the game, with the rule changes, because I think at the moment I look at that box and I don't see a lot of help around. I'd actually make Adam Dewey captain next year. I assume Tamo will play on, but I think it's time to have an aggressive young captain who's going to be there for a long time. I like Joel, I want Adam Hartigan to stay, because I think he's been at the forefront of recruiting a lot of good junior talent. And I want to see what Tim Sheens can do. I think the change I would potentially look to make, and I don't know these guys, but Justin Pascoe or Lee Hadjiban-Tallis, I just think the way the club is handled in the media at the moment is a little bit of a circus, and potentially, that could be a change at the top. Joel, what do you think about all that? The plan for 22?
Yeah. I think it's time to get out the broom. It's time for. I think it's time for a rebuild. I think if you look at Michael Maguire, I know we're nearly out of time, but if you look at Michael Maguire, I think Michael Maguire made a big cock up in his initial press conference when he was appointed, and the journalist asked him the question, "Is this a rebuild?" And he said no. He said, "No, I've got faith in these guys," and it hasn't been repaid. I think the club needs to have a good old sweep out and needs to have a good spring clean, and we need to start finding where the people that are going to take us to the next level in the next couple of years.
That's what, just Joel, on that. That's one thing some AFL organisations and US sport, which I follow, are quite good at, is getting their messaging around is when it is a rebuild. I mean, it'll be hard for Tigers fans to cop. But, Madge is sort of that old school where he's come in 2019 and says, we want to win straight away. And he simply didn't have the squad to do it. Whereas if he maybe said, look, we have to replenish this roster and start from the ground, then maybe more fans and media would be sort of still on his side.
Yeah, share a vision and take the fans on the ride. Take them on the ride. Everybody knew when Tim Sheens was appointed in 2003 that it wasn't going to be an overnight thing. But he took us on the ride. You could constantly see that things were starting to fall into place. And that's what the club needs to do. The club needs to be so much more proactive in those areas in regards to getting the fans on board. And if people can see that the next generation's coming through and there's something to be excited about, to watch them grow, they'll get on board, for sure. It's just at the moment, we feel like we've been given these players like Joey Leilua, and it hasn't worked. And we're just going to continue on and on and on and on doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Declan, quickly, I think you think Madge, you'd give him the start of 22.
Yeah, I would give him this upcoming preseason, and then reassess at the halfway point of next season in terms of just to see how the team's playing, but also how they use the salary cap money. Because you look at guys like Josh Reynolds, they're going. Russell Packer, he's gone after this year, and there's talks that Moses Mumbai might be going as well. So there's a lot of salary cap room to be kind of used, and I just kind of want to see the players they target as well. And I would also be looking very hard to incorporate a few of the Jersey Flag players that have been successful into the kind of professional setup as well. Guys like Brandon Tunith, who've already played in the Civils Cup. I think Fanua Pole as well look really good in that level. So I'd like to see them incorporated as well. And I agree with you. I think they should probably invest in Adam Dewey, make him captain, show a little bit of stability in the leadership group that changes every year. So it'd be good to have like one solid voice year to year, someone you can kind of build a culture around, hopefully. And yeah, like obviously at the moment, there's no clear answers in terms of like who we can bring into the club that's going to make an immediate impact. But I think that we just have to, as you said, invest in juniors and just hopefully we unearth a few gold gems.
Well, boys, it's been a big discussion, and it's been good, passionate. You can see that Tigers fans still care, and there's still hope there, but it's a frustrating period, no doubt. Joel, we've got the Warriors on Friday night, and then we've got the Bulldogs. How many of those games are we going to win?
Well, the Bulldogs were pretty good against the Sharks. I thought they're certainly slowly starting to turn the ship around and head in the right direction. The Warriors, I mean, look, we just had trouble with the Warriors last year. That game at the SCG that everybody was saying we're sure to win, and it was probably one of the most disappointing games I've ever watched. twice burned, once bitten, twice shy. I'm very, very worried. And if ever the Warriors, the last team they beat was the Tigers, so they should have every reason to feel a little bit confident jagging a win.
Declan, I think we'll win. I think the Warriors are undermanned. I think it'll be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think we're going to win as well. I think that the Warriors looked a little bit broken against South Sydney last week. They got 50 points put on them. Their captain has left and is back to New Zealand, and I think that Tohu Harris is still out injured. So I do think I give us a chance to win this game because we've played some pretty good footy against the teams that are kind of close to us in the ladder, and we need to win as well. So I'm going to tip us as well. Good luck.
All right, Declan, I'll see you next week, and Joel, you're welcome on the podcast anytime. It's been great to have your thoughts again.
Thanks, boys.
Rising up, straight to the top. Had the guts, got the glory. What the distance, now we're not gonna stop. Just a team with a will to survive. We're the West Tigers, it's the thrill of the